want to welcome you to the historic Daniel Boone home. Today, you'll be led through an actual home of the Boone family. You'll see what daily life was like in the late 17 and early 1800s, how people survived, and the amazing craftsmanship of the early settlers. Before I show you Boone's home in the recreated Boonesville village, I would like to first introduce you to Daniel and his family. Daniel Boone was born in Oley Township, Pennsylvania, in October of 1734. Over a period of several years, Boone's family traveled south, eventually settling in the Yadkin Valley of North Carolina. During this time, it was typical on the frontier for the adult males in a family to set off on prolonged hunting expedition, learning the land and all that came with it. Daniel Boone was no exception.
Then he wandered about quite a bit. People were always looking for ways to improve their situation, and that had to do with your land and your resources. So he spent some time hunting down in Tennessee. He had made a couple little short forays into what is now Kentucky. Actually made a trip down to Florida and bought a tract of land down there, although he didn't do anything with it, never moved down there. But just back and forth between what is now Kentucky, Tennessee, and North Carolina.
In 1775, while cutting what would become known as the Wilderness Road, Daniel came to the decision that it was time to move his family. They headed west and settled in the beautiful area that is now Kentucky. Because Kentucky's land was extremely fertile and underdeveloped, people on the eastern side of the Appalachian Mountains began moving west, eager for the opportunity to get a piece of the land the various governments were giving away. With so many settlers moving into these new western lands, surveyors like Daniel Boone found themselves to be quite busy plotting off the land. This also led to major issues, eventually driving Boone away in search of a quieter atmosphere.
We think of our society as being very litigious, very lawsuit-oriented, but we have nothing on our ancestors. I mean, this sort of take your neighbor to court attitude has been around since the beginning. As a surveyor, if I surveyed your piece of property and some other gentleman surveyed your neighbor's piece of property, and then by the time those land claims were filed, unknown to the two of us, you were both laying claim to the same piece of property and those claims overlapped. You'd sue each other, but then each of you would sue the other man's surveyor and your own surveyor. And so since Daniel was involved in a huge number of surveys all over Kentucky, he was constantly being drawn into court.
Tired of the constant battles in court, Daniel sent off one of his sons into the Spanish-owned Louisiana territory. He came back with wonderful reports of bountiful lands, plenty of game to hunt, and most importantly, very few settlers. It was decided then that the Boone family would again move west, this time across the Mississippi. They settled in the district of St. Charles, near what are today the towns of Defiance, Matteson, and Marthasville, Missouri. Upon arriving in the spring of 1799, the family immediately began construction on a few cabins that would give them basic shelter from rain and snow.
Well, Daniel's property he was given the largest tract of Spanish land grant. And most of his land was actually over by Matteson, Missouri, where Matteson is now, down in the bottoms. Daniel Morgan owned property right next to him. Then the rest of the family kind of branched out from there. As I mentioned, Nathan stayed behind so he could marry his sweetheart. So by the time he got here, there weren't any grant lands available. They had all been used up. But a family friend by the name of Robert Hall had acquired this property, we think, to hold for Nathan. And so when Nathan got here, Nathan traded a horse and saddle and blanket for the property that this house sits on.
With all the land divided and settled, it was time to build a permanent home. And in 1803, 3 years after arriving, the Boone family began construction on Nathan's home. 7 years later, they finished construction on a home that was 3 1/2 stories tall, with 7 rooms, a kitchen, an attic, and a fireplace in every room. By today's standards, this home is quite impressive, boasting around 2,500 square feet. If you compare the Boone home to a house today, it could easily sit among the likes of what you see here. For the 21 years between 1799 and 1820, Daniel Boone spent the last of his days in this secluded and beautiful land along with most of his family.
One thing that we like for people to understand about the Boone home, it's actually Nathan Boone's house. This was one of his sons. Daniel, of course, helped him build it. It is the reason why it's referred to as the Daniel Boone home. It was the last resting place of Daniel. He was there 21 years, which was longer than any other place that he stayed, Kentucky and all these other states. But he lived there until he died, and actually died in the home.
Although Daniel's actual house and lands were about 7 miles from Nathan's, it is this home that has become synonymous with Daniel Boone's name. After all, it was this home that Daniel helped build. It was this home that Daniel most often slept in. It is this home that shows us the experiences of Daniel. And it was this home in which Daniel took his final rest. Today, the Boone home is considered as one of the most well-preserved buildings from the days of early American colonization of the West. Lindenwood University's Boone campus has become a must-see tourist attraction for many. With over 27 different historical buildings, a person is able to step back in time and see how the settlers lived, worked, ate, and slept. Structures include a woodworker's shop, transplanted from Flint Hill and built in 1836. The Peace Chapel was originally built in 1844 as a general store and is used for special events, concerts, and weddings. Today, you will be given a tour through one of the oldest American-built historical homes west of the Mississippi River. Get ready to step back in time and walk in the same footsteps as one of the most well-known men of early America, Daniel Boone.
The ripplingest, roaringest, fightingest man the frontier ever knew.